Alright guys, before you chop my head off for the audio quality, I can only apologize. I'm sitting in a ferry terminal right now in Norway, in Trondheim, and I just saw this game. Aronian against Carlsen, and I want to share my analysis with you guys. So maybe turn it low, maybe it's not as bad then. I'm really sorry about this, but obviously I cannot do anything about it. I just have the laptop mic and not my professional mic with me. I just saw the game and I want to do this analysis, so I hope you guys can still enjoy it. Alright, let's get started. It's Aronian against Carlsen from the Altibox Norway Chess Tournament 2017. Aronian with the white piece started out with d4 and Carlsen went for the anti-Miran variation. And let's go through the opening pretty quickly. Bishop b4, this all has been seen many times before. And the first critical moment is right here. Here Aronian surprised his opponent by playing a novelty. An unusual move here, bishop to c2, which has not been seen before. Usually people play queen c2, rook e1, or knight e5 maybe. But bishop c2 hasn't been played. So why did he play this move? Well, the point is that after queen c2, for example, black can go e5, which is a very typical response to many of white's moves. And bishop c2 is prophylactic against e5, because if now e5, white has this interesting option here to play knight takes d5. And seems there was just supreme preparation by Aronian. Carlsen didn't play that. But here it seems like that white could get very nice compensation for a piece d takes e5, and probably black should get the piece back by going d takes c4, otherwise white will have a super strong center with pawns on e5 and d5. So this is the idea, moving back the bishop to c2. And Carlsen played something else, very logical move, playing rook d8, maybe once again preparing e5, and here you can see the depth of Aronian's preparation. He continued with a3, such a paradox move. a3, just hang a pawn, right? Well, Carlsen took up the bait, but that might have been a mistake. He took the pawn, and I guess still want to see Aronian's preparation. I'm pretty sure there was preparation. a3 is just incredible. I think Carlsen should have gone back to d6, and then white can play e4, and this may be a little bit better, but not much has happened. So he took the pawn, and now Aronian continues with an exchange sacrifice, just taking the bishop off and plays c5, and he has just sacrificed a pawn and an exchange. So what is he getting in return? Well, the queen is out of play, and the queen is in a little bit of trouble. You can see if the queen goes to a5, white could take on d5 with the knight. So Carlsen plays very logically, he plays b6 to get the queen out. If white takes, then the queen can return. And now Aronian played b4. I guess here's preparation ended, because there was something stronger even than to play b4. b4 is very interesting, but even better was knight b1. And now queen a2, and now queen c1 going after this queen, threatening knight c3 again. And here after this line, queen a5, only square for the queen, knight takes d5, queen b5, knight c7, white is regaining the material, and is having a very nice edge here with the bishop pair and a better pawn structure. So this is a clear advantage for white. So knight b1 looks like a very good alternative for white here. But instead, Aronian played b4, which is also very interesting, like I said. The point is simply, he wants to take back pawn on c5. And black could take on b4, but then white has this discovered attack of knight takes d5. And now let's say queen c4, and white can pick up another pawn. This also looks quite attractive for white, with an attack on the rook on d8. And having a nice pawn chain here. So Carlsen played knight e4, And this is a very difficult position to play, obviously. Black is defending here and has to take care of his queen. It looks like best would have been to play queen b2, but this is a move you really only find if you are a computer, more or less. And then knight a4, the queen can just go to a2 and is not getting trapped here, surprisingly. I mean, this is amazing, right? The queen is not being trapped here. So you can't really fault Carlsen for not going for this. This is just incredibly difficult to play queen b2. Such a weird move. So he goes knight e4. Knight takes, bishop takes. No, so white has regained the pawn, but he's still an exchange down. But now the bishop is very nicely squared, placed, looking in both directions of the board. And here Carlsen makes a mistake. He goes rook b8. Instead, b takes c5 needed to be played, but this is again over the board very, very difficult to play. B takes c5 and now a5, just giving the pawn on c6. A5, the intention to open up the bishop to a6, and now just playing rook a7. And this looks also dangerous, but it seems like with accurate play, black can hold here and actually achieve equality. For example, now queen a1. With the queen exchange, white is eyeing the pawn on a5 and is winning the pawn on a5, but black can push and now give the pawn, but exchanging a pair of rooks, which definitely helps him. And it seems that black can defend his position, even though I would not like to be in black's shoes here. But this is the best black can do. So Carlsen played rook b8, and now white had different options available, but Aronian playing really aggressively here. He could have played a quiet move like queen c2, that's good, but he goes for another sacrifice. Bishop takes h7, which is a very typical sacrifice, but maybe not if you have already sacrificed an exchange. So this is a very typical piece sacrifice, so you can definitely remember this kind of motive for your future games, both to play it yourself and also to see it coming when your opponent has this option. So Carlsen takes, and now the knight is coming out. Knight to g5, also opening up the diagonal for the queen. The king retreats to g8. If king g6, then white could continue with queen g4 and some nasty discovered checks available. And knight f6 doesn't really change much, queen g3. And here the queen is also attacking rook on b8. But this is all quite complicated still. I mean, you definitely have to calculate this carefully. So Carlsen decided to retreat. Now the queen is coming, queen to h5, and threatening the pawn f7, as well as possibly going into h7. And the key factor here is the queen so far away from the black king on a3. That's a key factor. And the attack of white is quite strong. Carlsen finds only moves here again and again, plays knight f6. If queen d3, for example, with the logical idea to bring the queen closer to the king, white is winning on the spot. Takes an f7, takes an e6, threatens queen takes g7, threat a checkmate, and the rook. So rook g8 makes sense, right? But now knight f4 is very, very unpleasant for black, because now the queen is attacked, and if the queen was to move, let's say here, then white gives a check on h5, forcing queen h7, and knight g6 checkmate. I'm just noticing I'm having the earbuds in the whole time. That's not necessary. Okay. So knight f6 is the only move, allowing queen takes f7, and here we see the whole point of this combination. Why is this even possible? Because now white has this very nice move, queen c7, hitting both rooks, as well as opening up the f7 square for the knight, introducing this fork idea, and white is regaining some material. Bishop d7, knight f7 check. And white is winning back the rook, but this is not the end of the story. If white was just winning back the rook, well, then he would be up 2 pawns. Yeah, that's right, 2 pawns. It's not the end of the story, though, because now black plays rook c8. The line still continues, and also tells you how much in advance Aronian had to see to play the sacrifice bishop takes h7. He had to still calculate this move, rook c8. Now he picks up another pawn. He's up 3 pawns now, but after knight d5, he's not able anymore to defend the knight on d8. So he has to move the queen is attacked, moves it to a7, and now black is picking up the knight. So now again, white is down a piece, but he already has 3 pawns. And still, Aronian had to see this in advance, and he saw correctly so that he can play e4 and threaten the knight on d5, and have this option available once the knight moves to sometimes play knight f6. Let's say, for example, black goes knight takes b4. Well, here you could even play queen b6 and also hit the knight on b4, but queen c7 would be sufficient, because if the rook moves, white can take the bishop on d7 and black cannot defend the rook on d8. So that's an important idea in the position, challenging the knight on d5 so the c7 square becomes available. Now Carlsen played queen d3, but best would have been to go knight f6. And here now the pawn is after queen c7, the bishop on d7 is defended, so black can just move the rook. But instead white can go bishop g5, once again introducing a number of ideas, one being bishop takes f6 followed by queen c7, another one being e5. Now queen takes b4, now bishop takes f6 followed by queen c7 wouldn't be that strong because black has the defensive move queen b8, so the other idea comes into play, e5. And okay, this is all computer. King g6 is not an easy move to make, obviously, coming out with the king, but the point is simply you defending the pawn on f6 one more time. And here in the end of this variation, after queen d5, white is a little bit better, but pawns are equal, and black can definitely fight on and defend here, probably. But very difficult to find all these moves. So queen d3, point being, black is attacking upon e4 and the bishop on d2. So we see an exchange here. Takes on d2, queen takes d2. Takes on d5, takes on d2, queen c7 now. Now, this idea is possible, but Carlsen had seen it and he saw he could play queen g5 defending the rook, so he's not losing a piece. And here Aronian actually goes wrong. He plays d takes c6, very tempting move, taking pawn, attacking the bishop, but even stronger would have been to play d6, have this protected pass pawn on the 6th rank, and really now all the black pieces are kind of dependent on each other. The queen is defending the rook is defending the bishop, and the bishop can't move too far away because they always have to watch out that this pawn isn't going through, isn't queening. So here it seems that white can just slowly improve his position. He already has 3 pawns for the piece, he can bring his rook into play, whereas black, it seems like, can just sit and watch, and it will be a very tough defensive task, if at all possible. After d takes c6, bishop c8, things are not that clear though, because the bishop is blocking the c pawn, and white cannot get another pawn going at the moment. You see, both these pawns, they cannot go forward because these pawns are controlling the squares. Still, white is in charge here. White is pressing, is having the initiative, and black is defending. White has 4 pawns after all for the piece. Alright, so h3, useful move to make some space for the king, avoid any background checkmates. Now queen d5, rook d1. And here Carlsen goes wrong. He plays e5. It makes so much sense, right? Playing active, using the pin on the d file. But after that move, black is in trouble again. Rook f8 was the only move. And it seems black is actually able to defend here, because he can always create some counterplay against the white king. If queen d6, very logical move, hitting the rook on f8, as well as introducing a possible queen trade, black can counter this with queen b3, counter attack on the rook on d1. Now, if, for example, queen takes f8, queen takes d1, king h2, queen takes d4, black is just in time to deliver the perpetual queen f4 check and queen c1. By the way, a very common perpetual motive that you can keep in mind. So rook f8 was the way to defend. Carlsen plays e5, and now Aronian swings the rook into action, plays rook d3, bring the rook over to g3, possibly threatening checkmate against g7. And here Carlsen plays another mistake. E takes d4. Instead, e4 needed to be played. Still, it will be tough. It will be tough. Rook g3, and now queen takes d4. And white probably doesn't have anything better than to go for rook takes g7 and play queen takes d8. There's still some practical chance here for black, I would say. Let's say queen a1, check, check, g3, queen f5, threatening f2 and h3. White has to play queen h4 check and g4, and white can always trade to queens because that would be winning for him. Go to queen to g3, put a pawn c7. Probably he will win in the long run, I'm guessing, but this was the most resilient defense. So Carlsen plays e takes d4, and now Aronian plays a very nice move here. He doesn't play rook g3. He goes queen e7, also introducing ideas of queen h4 check, introducing c7, of course freeing the way for the pawn. And now Carlsen makes another mistake, and then it is over, but to be honest, it is already over anyway. It's just a matter of, well, how much resistance you can still put up. The most tenacious move was rook g8, but here I cannot imagine a human defending this. Rook takes d4, queen e5, c7, the king on g6, all the black pieces passive. This must be losing, and it is losing, objectively. So Carlsen played bishop f5. But now after rook g3, he doesn't have a good way to defend against the checkmate on g7. Because if he were to play queen g8 or rook g8, then there's a checkmate on h4. So Carlsen played bishop g6, defending against the checkmate, but now this other idea comes into action. Queen h4 check, and here the world champion Magnus Carlsen resigned, because after a king retreat, he will lose the bishop on g6. And what are the other options? Well, queen h5 hangs the rook on d8, and bishop h5 runs into rook g5, also losing the piece on h5. And after, let's say, king g8, rook takes g6, d3 is just too slow. Right? If the pawn was on d3 already and you could play d2, that would be a different story. It's just one move too slow. White is first. Just plays queen e7, it's very simple. Threatening checkmate again, queen d4, and now just rook takes g7, queen takes, picks up the rook, picks up the pawn. White is up 5 pawns, so this is game over. So an absolutely marvelous game of Levon Aronian, beating the reigning world champion Magnus Carlsen here with several sacrifices, an absolute masterpiece. Supreme opening preparation. Playing a3, playing this exchange sacrifice, very courageous too, of course, but it helps if you have the opening preparation, and then following up with strong, powerful play, sacrificing another piece, and that involves so much calculation, but I guess he also followed his intuition there, and he was absolutely right, putting on pressure, and it was a really tough defensive task for Magnus Carlsen, and in the end, he didn't find all the right moves, and Aronian came to a very beautiful victory. So I'm sure you guys understand why I just absolutely had to share this analysis with you of this masterpiece, and I once again apologize for the bad audio quality. I still hope you could enjoy it, and I talk to you very soon. Bye bye.